Hello and welcome. My name is Nettee. And welcome to my third series of my podcast. I can't believe I'm on number 3 already. So I've got 2 new guests with me today. I have Emma.
Hello.
Hello, Emma. And I have Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hi.
So I've got 2 very different guests today, which is very exciting. But I feel that the subjects are going to come together really nicely. So I feel on this first episode that we need to introduce ourselves, because you may not have seen me before or heard about who am I, and we need to introduce my guests. So as I said, my name is Nettee. I work full-time as a paramedic in the UK, in Devon. I'm based in Devon. I've been doing that for about 12 years now, and before that I was a teacher. And I also was a dancer. So I've led a very varied life. So I've got lots of experience with lots of different things, but I'm, as the saying says, not an expert in any of it really. So the reason I've started these podcasts is because I like to hear about people's stories. I'm listening to people's stories all day, every day in the back of the ambulance. And I feel that we have all been on a journey, and particularly a healing journey. I know I have. And that healing journey, if we tell our story, could help somebody else. So that's enough of me for a minute. Things will unfold as we go along. Right then, shall we start with Emma? Tell me about you, Emma. So I believe, let me get this right, are you a menopause coach? Is that correct?
I am indeed. Menopause, midlife, life coach.
Brilliant.
That's my main focus.
Your main focus.
But it's not all I do. So
No.
I am Emma at Embrace the Menopause, and it's about embracing the menopause. I suppose it's come through my own healing journey, finding my way through my own menopause. That's totally changed my career pathway from, being an educator, being a leader and teacher in schools for 25 plus years, secondary schools, languages teacher, pastoral lead, to deciding actually now it's a change. I want to help women, partly because I've got 2 daughters and now 2 granddaughters. And I want to make sure they don't go through the fear, the ignorance that I went through of my own body. I feel really embarrassed that at 52, I still didn't really understand what my body was capable of, and understand what was going on with my body, the menstrual cycle and everything like that. So a big learning curve for me. And now I'm about sharing that and supporting women to embrace the rest of their lives, because most of us will have at least a third of our lives left after we hit that one day, which we class the menopause.
Yeah, it's interesting because I heard, and you'll correct me in this, that the actual menopause part of it is actually only really short, but the perimenopause bit is the build-up to that, as you say, that one day, which I didn't realise until I did this job.
No, I didn't realise. It was like, I thought, menopause is just hot sweats and it'll come around 50 years old. And I wasn't getting hot sweats. I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And then when I did look into it, perimenopause can start anytime you're late 30s, quite normally, because the average age of menopause, which is just one day a year after you have not had a period, then you can say that you are menopausal. But that is just one day. After that, you are postmenopause.
Okay.
But then the symptoms menopause is the thing that just keeps giving and giving and giving, because I meet women who only start to get some of the symptoms quite a while after they've had that one day. So in their 60s, they'll be telling me they're getting the hot sweats. A woman on Friday was telling me she's 72 and just suddenly getting hot sweats out of blue. So menopause is the thing that just keeps giving.
Oh, that's so nice to
I
hear.
know.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll hear more about that in a minute.
Yes.
Okay, all right, Adam. Hello, Adam. And
Hello.
Can I just say thank you for coming. The first man on my pop show? Is that a pop show? Podcast. That was the wrong era. That pop show was many, many years ago. Thank you for coming to the podcast.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Tell the audience about you and what do you do and who are you?
I'm an educational child psychologist. So I've done things around research. I basically wanted to be a psychologist since I was 14. And any aspiring psychologist out there could probably relate to how long of a journey that is. So from 14 to starting university, I was just in awe of everything, mindful-based, behavioral-based, trying to understand why people behave the way they do. And then after university, I thought I want to be a clinical psych. And I quickly realized that wasn't for me. And I was listening to a show by Ken Robinson, the famous TED Talk. So Ken Robinson was one of the first speakers that really took TED off. And that's going back 20 years now. So when I heard it, and it just completely flipped the script for me. I was like, I want to work with young people in education. And the more I looked into education, I felt the power of it, the potential power of it is huge. Now, it's not being realized in today's society we can get into a number of reasons. And it's interesting hearing you both speak about the menopause, because I feel like I operate at the other end of the career spectrum. However, I do feel like there's going to be some crossover, because recently I've started working with small businesses around supporting young people into employment.
Okay.
And increasingly, I'm starting to find that I often advocate for this relational approach in all aspects of life. And we have to have an understanding of what each person's going through, not just emotionally, but in terms of their role. And my research background is really role-based. And so although I'm an educational psychologist, I'm also a role specialist, understanding how roles function within systems. School-based background is obviously my strongest suit, but I'm increasingly finding the theories I bring to schools actually apply in the business sector too, and often apply in a more straightforward way, because in schools you have the curriculum and you have children, and they are complex factors.
They are. They are. But it's interesting, like you say, how it all feeds into one, because I found that, because obviously I've worked with all age groups now. I worked in nurseries and then primary school, and I've done secondary school, and I've taught adult education as well. And now I deal with all age groups in society. I find the same behaviours and the same sort of human things actually are all the same, from the small children up to adult. And I find what you're saying interesting, that their journey, all their problems are the same. I think that's what I'm trying to say. From that moment of being a child to being an adult, their journey, the problems are still the same, and helping them as children, because we didn't have that help many years ago. But now with people like you in schools, it's is really helpful for children. And it's interesting that you're working in now businesses. That businesses with young adults only, or is that?
We're focusing mainly on that. We're trying to focus on, me and one of my business partners is on that age group between 19 and 25.
Okay.
Basically getting the soft skill set to enter the workplace. And it came about because of the mental health crisis. It's been basically looming since austerity. Any sort of pro-Osborne figures, you won't not like me. I'm not a very big fan of what Osborne's policies did to the education sector. And what that meant is, or what that means is that young people entering the workplace now have greater levels of anxiety, even since the likes of I started working. That was, I started working after the Great Recession. That wasn't a nice time, and they're going through an even harder time than that.
They are.
So it's time to look at what are the support structures in place, but not only from the young people entering work, but also getting people who are line managing and realizing what support they can put in place, and normalizing differences of opinion. So it's okay to have a difference of opinion with your line manager, and compliance doesn't mean agreeing. Just because a young person might comply with your request doesn't mean they're getting the most out of the job. And for SMEs, small, medium enterprises, it is important that they realize that getting the buy-in from young people is important, because for the longevity of an organization is completely dependent on the people employed by it. So unless especially if your business requires some sort of skilled work, you need to have happy employees, especially this day and age, where you have professionals who are disenfranchised. They're going to leave because they can take their skill set elsewhere. Unless you're in the gig economy or things like that, it's a different kettle of fish, but mainly I'm focusing on those ones who are skilled or semi-skilled workplaces.
Okay.
Which are terrible phrases, but I can't think of a better one at the moment because they're kind of like out there, aren't they?
Yeah. And I suppose that that movie, it's a very different time because like you're saying, you've got children, and grandchildren, the same as me. And I'm watching the grandchildren. Of course, they're going secondary school. And it's very different world nowadays. And you taught in secondary school, didn't you? And how long ago was that?
Actually, in a normal secondary school, probably about 2015 I left normal secondary
sounds very
to go to an international and then to a special needs school.
Yeah.
But I like what you're talking about there about supporting the young people. That's and talking with employers because in the same frame, with the equality action plans that the government brought in December, that ties in so nicely because they've brought in the fact that employers need to support women's health and menopause at that time with these individual equality action plans and action plans for employers to make sure that women feel comfortable, primarily women because of for the women's health sector of it, but it's not just, that's the bit I'm interested in now. But I think it's generally as well, like you were saying, to support everyone wanting to stay. 1 in 10 women at this age leave their employment, partly because they feel that they can't do it anymore, but partly because the employers are not giving them the support. And I think that's what you're talking about, is that support. There
needs to be a big shift in general about how we look at the employee, not benefits, but employee legal protections overall. And we in this country and many other countries, we have a habit of separating them into male and female. Historically, it's because women got pregnant and went off and had babies and then they'd come back. But now families are not as simple as it wasn't the 2.4. It isn't the nuclear family anymore. You have modern families. Every family looks different, and we need to start looking at how not just equality but equity. And I mean that I don't mean that in a simplistic term. I mean we need to look at things like paternity leave in real detail. This idea of my son is 2.5. And I looked into paternity leave briefly whenever it came up. And me and my wife were roughly earning about the same at the time. I think she was actually earning slightly more. But it turned out it wasn't as easy as you'd think. And when we crunched the numbers, don't ask me on the details because I can't remember, but it was actually not in our benefit for me to take any time, basically, other than a bit of unpaid leave. And what needs to happen is more like the Swedish system, where you have basically a full year of the mother going off and then a full year of the father going off. And that will automatically mean that when both re-enter the workplace, there's no discrepancy in time lost. But then equally, you got to look at things like the menopause. We've got women are increasingly skilled. The days of, just doing admin work are gone. Women might opt into that, but so many I speak to is like, I'm doing it because of the time benefits or the flexibility around work. I'm not doing it because it's fulfilling or anything like that. One, that's another mental health thing if you don't do fulfilling work. It is important to look at. And what that means for me is that if you don't look at the menopause side of things, in pure economic terms, you're affecting productivity, you're affecting output. These people, if they're supported in the right way, they will return the dividends.
I can't remember the exact amount, but it's stupid money that the economy is losing because women at that in their prime, with the expertise and the knowledge and the skills, are leaving their jobs because of menopause and not feeling supported and sometimes being ridiculed and almost feeling that they've got to leave and not feeling capable anymore. The economy's just it's.
If you just look at one important sector, the health sector, Most doctors now are female. I think it's 60-40. The balance shifted about 10 years ago, I think.
Schools as well, 76%.
Yeah, even my own profession, it's 80-20 in favour of females. And what that means is if they get to 50, if you think about the time you get to 50, you're the most useful in terms of bringing in the next generation. Yeah. If you take a big chunk of that and go, right, we're off, then the next generation come on going, well, who do we lean on for support? Who do we go to about, I talk a lot about in my writings about application of knowledge, communities of practice theory. And the way to develop your own knowledge and your own thinking is to communicate with those already in the field. Now, we have things like AI and they're very useful and stuff like that. But when you speak with someone, like dialogue between us, you will bring something up I didn't think about. I can't use AI in that way.
No, that's
AI has to be led by me.
Yeah.
But in a dialogue, it's back and forth. Take away that. So between 20 and 30 years, 20 and 50, there's 30 years of experience there. And you suddenly take that 30 years of experience and go, if you're a junior doctor, you want that experience, that safety net. And in theory, it's still there. Role models.
It makes me think about, I was saying to you the other day, wasn't I, about the grandmother hypothesis, which totally, that's totally what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is the reason that women go through menopause and we are one of the only mammals that have and survive after reproduction is so that we can give our expertise. And I love that, our expertise, our knowledge and our support to the younger generation so that, society and humanity can continue. Yeah, the whales, I think I said it's the blue orca. They've made quite a few studies of them. And without that grandmother, they would not necessarily know where to find the food when there are shortages. And the boys, especially the young boys, do not survive if you haven't got the grandmother there to help them and show them what to do. So, and whether that's actually true or not, I like that philosophy and hypothesis. So I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah. And I find that in my job because, of course, I'm a mentor at work. So I have students quite regularly. I always have a student designated to me. And I think because of the year's experience, you can get, in my job, you can do so the young people that come in and do university, they go to university, they get their paramedic degree, they come out on the road, but they are sometimes 21, 22, 23 years old.
So young.
And then they do their 2 years sort of NQP period. And then after those 2 years, so bearing in mind then, and it's not an age thing at all, it's more of an experience thing, but then they can get their own student. But of course, I have students and I feel the maturity and sort of the length of the job and the age and sort of your attitude is very different. And I find that if I was to leave, which I often think of because I need to slow down a little bit, or you lose your confidence actually. You talking going into menopause, you lose your confidence as in, who's going to listen to me and what have I got to offer, and I can't get my words out right because my brain has just gone blah, and you kind of feel
welcome to my world.
Which I'm proving quite well today, and it's your brain just goes like this, and then you lose your confidence because you kind of think, well, who does she think she is? She can't even say her words right, and then add on top of that, everything changes when you sort of hit that perimenopausal stage. I think for me, I didn't even comprehend about menopause, really, to be honest. It wasn't on my radar, even though I think I was perimenopause from sort of early 40s, maybe even late 30s, because I was getting hot sweats when I was early 40s. But I've just put that down to the fact that I'm just relentless, as in, like, I'm always working, and that I was doing too much and going into burnout. So I didn't think that was hormone changes, and then you start losing your memory, which normally I've got a really sharp memory. And then you lose your confidence. And then I think that's why a lot of women particularly, leave their jobs because in that sort of 50s to 55 area is because you just lose your confidence because you kind of feel that you haven't got it anymore.
Yeah.
And you feel disappointed with yourself. A lot of the times I'm very disappointed in myself, as in, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to remember that. And you sort of then start going berating, and then you sort of don't go down that little spiral. And then you have to learn how to then talk yourself out of that. And
I hear that every day.
Yeah.
All the women I talk with and work with, they're talking about that, how they just have lost themselves.
Yeah.
And it's as well, it's I used to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's
I used to be able
annoying.
to juggle all these things, but now, I find everything's just falling on the floor and just keeping my head above water. And then, the lack of confidence, it's so sad.
And I think it's nice because like with the men, sort of generational kind of with men, I think it's nice that, so my partner's so understanding and you appear, you're really understanding. You've got a lot of knowledge when it comes to it. But I know still in the workplace, and there is still that kind of Mickey taking of women that get to a certain age and they're getting a bit brain fog.
And not just by men.
Yeah.
Quite a few of the women I talk to actually say it's women who sort of like diss their feelings, their emotions, normally because they're either a lot younger and it hasn't come into their remit yet, or even older and it's sort of like, well, you just get on with it, don't you? You just have to get on.
Upper lip type stuff.
It's that pushing through all the time. And I think it's like you're expected just to push through. I'm still in that old way of thinking of I have to have a word with myself as if to say it's okay not to push through. It's okay to acknowledge how I'm feeling if I'm feeling tired or my brain isn't functioning how I want it to be functioning. That pushing through era of you're just expected just to get on with it, really.
It sounds like when you go through perimenopause and menopause, it is an identity shift. And one of the important things to remember about identity is when you have a challenge to your identity or a change in your identity, it's best to assume it's automatically an attack on your well-being, your mental health. Now, that doesn't mean in the sense that it's bad. But what it means is you have to do some resolution. And that means you have to do some acceptance. And when you can accept a change in identity quickly, it tends to go well for you. It's when that shift in identity is challenging that it starts to affect your well-being. So for most people listening to this podcast, it's either going to be entering the adult workforce or it's going to be entering parenthood. Those two are probably the biggest identity shifts you'll have, and arguably the menopause third. I can't relate to that, unfortunately. But
you can empathize.
I can. And what this means is there needs to be a shift in not just internal beings, but the cultural shift around when people go through identity shifts, an element of sympathy, if you can't relate, empathy, if you can relate, and promoting acceptance. It's okay to have these shifts. It's like, for me, the most recent one was entering parenthood. It's okay to feel this tired. It's okay to feel this grumpy. One of the biggest things I struggled with was managing the feelings of anger from being so tired. Mainly because I thought that was something I put to bed a long time ago. And having them come back up, it's like, this isn't who I am. Then accepting, actually, a part of it is who you are, and that's okay. You're aware of it now. You can know when you're coming close to that feeling, so do something about it. Imagine going through the menopause as something similar, losing like that sharpness. It's like, okay, I know I'm losing a bit of that. That's okay. I can accept that. When I start to feel this point, I'll do something about it. People around you should be accepting, and not just in the shared workspaces, but in our own lives. I don't know why it's a bit like breastfeeding in public. I don't know why these are taboo topics. I think cafes should just have posters up saying it's okay to breastfeed here. Some do.
Yeah.
But it's similar. It's like, it should be okay to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's natural.
I think there's a change. I think now there is more, it feels like women, especially, are wanting to shout about it and saying, no, it's not all right anymore. You know, it's like, it makes me so angry hearing about, because you're right about that change, because it's also the physical and mental, you know, puberty.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things, then parenthood. Yeah. And then obviously the menopause. And they're very similar in very many ways because of not just the hormones, but like you say, changing yourself and grieving almost, you know, what was before and no longer being there. And then it's like accepting that change. But what makes me angry is when I hear that people saying, you know, you've just got to accept that periods are going to be painful. I did. Or, you know, it's just part of being a woman, is that you are going to have painful periods, get on with it. Or that you're going to go through the menopause and you're going to have, you know, brain fog or hot sweats or, you know,
ache in every joint you could possibly think of.
Yeah. And that's okay. Or like you're saying, parenthood, that, you know, you are going to, you know, have sleepless nights, and it's going to really hit you hard, not having that sleep, let alone then your changing role. And, you know, for women more than obviously men's hormones don't change as much as the women's during that time.
You'd be surprised.
But yeah, they do.
Don't they?
So
I think
you lose a third of your testosterone.
Yeah.
If you stick around. It's funny, if you don't stick around, nothing changes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you have a kid and you bugger off, you stay the same. But if you stick around, you lose up to a third of your testosterone production.
Did not know that.
And they think it's because you're less of a threat then.
Okay.
So like that feeling of anger, the more testosterone you have, the more likely you are going to act on anger. So as to keep the baby safe.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
That is interesting.
Well, that's my theory. I mean, I haven't had any confirmation on it.
Well, men do as well. Men do. You have got andropause now as well, which is the male menopause. I think it's only about, I'm going to say about 5%, but I can't remember the actual figures. But so a very small percentage of men actually will get similar symptoms, feeling really, and it's mood and
is that why depression's so much more common after 50, 60? It's not just loneliness and loss of social, it's like a hormonal change too, is it?
Totally, yeah, because for most it's just a gradual 1% a year. Yeah, but they obviously start really high up and go down. I didn't know about around that
it was news to me.
Yeah, but it can then really hit, because some I think will then really just like dive.
Yeah.
Obviously, women have testosterone as well, and that then also adds into the whole shebang. But no, and I think, but I suppose what is happening now is that more and more people are saying it's not okay. Actually, why? Actually, if the periods are painful or things aren't right, that's our body telling us that something's not right. Yeah, and we shouldn't just ignore it.
No.
So it's very interesting.
Fascinating subject.